This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
So welcome to Killer Innovations. Glad you could join us this week. Yes, we are back in the mobile studio, talking with entrepreneurs, innovators, to understand their story and what it can mean for inspiration for all of us out there to go off and try to take that next idea we've got. Today we have Jeremy Leval from Parknav joining us, and we're going to talk a little bit about both the history of Parknav, but more importantly, kind of the whole entrepreneurial experience, the whole startup experience. So first of all, Jeremy, thanks for joining.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's great.
So give us a little bit of background on you. One of the questions we always like to ask is particularly people who've been innovators, entrepreneurs, actually turn it into businesses. Is this something that started as a kid, or give us a little bit of your history?
Sure. So I think the entrepreneurial bug started when I was 5. Yeah,
that's starting young.
Yeah, I was a little guy, and I was one of those kids who had a lemonade stand or a Kool-Aid stand or whatever you want to call it. And it started off where I even had an idea to buy salty pretzels and give them away for free, because I knew that if they ate the salty pretzels when they were there, they would probably buy another cup while they were still standing there. Yeah. So it all started when I was super young.
Yeah. And was it just something that you just felt the urge for, or was there a motivator behind it?
I think I wanted to challenge myself. As a young guy, you're always trying to be, you want to be noticed. You want to be something unique. At least in my mind, I wanted to. So I went the lemonade route, and that kind of started the whole process. And what followed was a chain reaction until now I'm 31 years old.
What did your parents think?
That's a whole other story in itself. My mother, very supportive. My father, the traditional lawyer, so wanted me to do the traditional, the traditional route. But no, I stuck to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it was interesting, right? I was a software engineer, and my mom was always the one of, why don't you just go work for like IBM?
Yep, that's
go the traditional route.
Got it.
Versus I did 13 startups.
Oh wow.
Before I finally got my first IPO. So, a little bit of that endurance, perseverance piece in there. So, where'd you go to school at?
So I did my undergraduate degree at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign.
Yeah, I used to live there.
You used to live there?
Yeah, in fact, I was just there 3 weeks ago visiting there.
The cornfields, kind of hanging out?
Cornfields, going for Illini Super Sweet, get a little Super Sweet corn.
There you go, yeah. And then I went back also for my MBA.
At U of I?
At the University of Illinois. Same school, same place. I loved it so much. I did it twice.
Did you do back to back, or did you do a gap in between?
No, I did a gap in between.
Wow.
I was working for Target Corporation.
In Minneapolis?
No, my office was in a city called Gurnee.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I was out there, and then overseeing a bunch of stores, and then also at the same time doing startups.
So you had the side hustle going thing.
I had the side hustle going on, which actually is one of the reasons I left and went back to get my MBA. Just to, I looked at it like a spider web. I had all these different pieces of knowledge from when I was growing up, and I kind of wanted to tie them together.
Okay. It's interesting. So then you went back to Urbana-Champaign.
I did. I went back
to
the cornfields
to get your you had to get your La Bambas, and I knew where you look at it, right?
Yeah. But but even before that, I guess talking about the lemonade stand thing, everything kind of evolved from there. The next step was I started a mobile DJ company when I was 12, doing 8-year-old birthday parties with a karaoke machine and disco balls. $200 an hour for a 12-year-old, and it's the coolest thing an 8-year-old's ever seen. Next thing you know, you're booked every single weekend, and growing it into something more substantial. So that's kind of that was step 2. And then when it comes to having a business, you need to have marketing materials. So I taught myself graphic design with Photoshop, and realized on eBay there were hundreds of thousands of stores selling exactly the same thing for the exact same price. And the only thing that differentiated them was perception. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to offer them a graphic logo or something in exchange for something they sell. And next thing you know, I was having arcade machines and all kinds of crap sent to my house, and I could either sell it or keep it. And so I was cutting out the cash part, but I was making more in the end than a professional graphic designer. And I can keep the story going that one of them was imported electronics from China, was one of the main car radio sellers to Walmart, a company called VR3. They kind of taught me how they did their process, and I imported some sample electronics, but from Shenzhen, but I and sold them on Craigslist. But I kind of learned that, and that got me into outsourcing, and then I started a website, outsourced the development, and that was college rides, and lo and behold, jump now to the MBA. I met a professor. I was introduced to him because we both had startups in the transportation space, and he's now the CEO of Parknav, and I jumped on.
So this is a professor from U of I?
He was a professor in AI at the University of Illinois, and I was a business major. I was not an engineer. But a friend of mine who did a remote control school bus with him introduced us, and this is when I was off. This is before I went back for my MBA, because he lived in Chicago and would commute 2.5 hours, and we just started brainstorming every single week, for my idea, what I was working on, and for his idea, which was now Parknav. And we just kind of grew it from there. And I went back from my MBA and we started an entrepreneurial group. We extended a meetup called the Bootstrappers Breakfast, which was, we had meetups in the local community. Professors, students would all come and we'd all just bootstrap, kind of chat and brainstorm. And when I graduated, he said, what are you doing? And like I said, I had my parents. My mother was supportive. My father was not. I had to make a choice, and I went with what I love, which was the startup.
Interesting. How important do you think it is for having, when you're trying to do the bootstrap thing, when you're doing the side hustle, to have that community that you can tap into?
I think it's extremely important because I think the most important thing that I learned was the mistakes that people made. Because you can build off those and try and not repeat the same mistakes.
Right.
I mean, yes, you can take the successes; it may not apply, but you're looking for themes so that you don't do something wrong.
Right.
You want to keep things going in the right direction. So the community was huge. You can get advice. You can get multiple perspectives. I learned very quickly. I thought I had the answers to everything. No, you learn very quickly. You know nothing. Well, you may know something, but you know nothing. And it's great to get a different perspective from somebody who is disconnected from what you are doing.
Right. The dispassionate view that's not as biased of, it's your idea or your thing.
Oh yeah,
someone
to
from
me,
that outside. It's almost like a pseudo board of directors or board of advisors.
You got it. And because of course you're going to think your idea is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Right.
But you need that pushback. You need those people to say, no, I did this and this is wrong or something. But as you mentioned, kind of like a mini micro board of advisors, and you can make different groups and kind of get different perspectives.
But part of the challenge though is in some cases, some people just want to play nice. They just want to say, oh, no, hey, no, your idea is really good. Continue going.
Yeah, you got to have a filter. You have
Right.
to have a filter. I mean, of course, you need to have qualified. When I say qualified, when you're at this stage, what's qualified? But you just need to think of someone who can who's had an experience that you can relate to, that you can apply to what you're doing, and you have to qualify it yourself and filter it. So,
well, I think it's also what I found, particularly with coaches and mentors, is giving them permission to critique. Right?
Yes.
Versus, going to someone and say, hey, what do you think of this idea? This happens all the time with product validation. You got this great product, take it to somebody, and you go, what do you think? Oh, hey, it's great.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no. I want the real answer. I gave you permission to rip this apart. Be critical. Find the flaws in it. Help me grow, change, adapt, improve, whatever it is.
I agree completely. Absolutely. People are nice, unfortunately.
It's unfortunate, particularly in a startup world, right? Because, there's a little bit of this aura of entrepreneurialism, right? Where it's kind of got this little bit of a shiny glow. Everybody sees the big successes. You've got the guts to go out there and strike out on your own type of thing.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, that's one group. I guess you see different groups of people. There's some people who are going to say, oh my gosh, good for you. You're doing it. You're going to see other people who say this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard, and then you're going to find everything in between.
Or you get the third people that say, oh, so you couldn't find a job.
Oh yeah. Well, it sounds like my father pretty much, because I went with the startup approach, which is not true. But you get a little bit of everything. You're going to also hear people who think, oh wow, you're more ahead than I am, so I need to suck up to this person so that I can somehow do something or be a part of it, and you get everything.
Yep, you do get everything. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue on this conversation, talk more specifically about the problem that you guys were going after with Parknav, and share kind of how that pivot and transitions have happened to get Parknav where it is today. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this short break.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovators Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Innovations. We're picking up the conversation where we left off after the first segment. So, give us some insight. With Parknav, what was the problem that you were trying to solve? You talked a little bit about it, autonomous school bus thing. So what was, every innovation, and there's some spark or thing that became the catalyst. In the case of Parknav, what was that?
Sure. So our CEO has the best story ever, and this is truly how Parknav started. So he lived in Chicago, and he realized that his girlfriend refused to visit him past a certain time because she could not find on-street parking near where he lived.
I grew up in Chicago, so I can attest to that.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. But anyway, his research was, as I mentioned, he was a professor and did AI. And I should also note that he was one of the top 10 to look for in AI by the IEEE in 2006. Very, very intelligent individual. He wanted to solve the problem using his research. And, I guess maybe that's not the big problem, but I guess it's an example of not being able to find parking. So, it's a problem that major cities face all around the world. They're becoming more and more populated. Parking is harder to find. I mean, I can give you stats. There's studies that have been done where they say 30% of traffic is as a result of people driving around looking for parking. So it's a problem that exists everywhere. And I mean, if cars need to, it's something you're going to do multiple times a week. Yep. It's going to happen. And people are doing it all at the same time. So it's a problem. It's a big problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the motivation is he wanted his girlfriend to come visit her. In order to get that to happen, he had to solve the nav problem, the parking problem.
You got it. Well, that was the big motivator.
Right.
It's somewhat comical, but then again, it's a real problem. And finding a practical solution to this so that way she can find parking.
So in this case, though, I've seen other parking solutions that are out there. Some of them, use embedded pucks in the ground to detect the metal of a car, whether or not the spot, is occupied. Some allow for pre-reservation of a spot in a parking garage. I'm coming to a sporting event. I want a spot, that type of thing. So there's been a lot of attempts to try to solve this problem.
There sure have.
So is there room for more innovation in this space?
Oh, of course there is. You named a couple. First off, you named reservations and that kind of stuff. That's off-street parking. So that's one area that's probably more mature. It's there's operators, they have a certain inventory, and there's resellers. Think of the orbits for parking garages and whatever, Spot Hero, Parkwiz, whatever. Then there's valet, and they'll valet your car. And then, like you mentioned, then there's sensors. But the problem is you have to dig up the ground. You got to put those in. You got to have a whole infrastructure set up to have those things operating. Where we come in is we're using strictly data. We're getting data from telecommunication companies, mapping companies, car manufacturers. everything and anything. And we're processing this in real time. We have a patented solution, and we're able to do unprecedented accuracy in knowing which streets are most likely to have an open and available on-street parking space. So we focus on the on-street space.
So you're able, is it a predictive model then? You're predicting that a spot would be available, or?
So there's no, yes, in essence we are.
Okay.
Because of course, if we say something's open and 10 seconds later it's going to be filled. But yes, we do a predictive model based on terabytes and terabytes of live of data that we're getting in real time that we are processing to give that accuracy.
Okay. So this is like data from cell phone usage, car data.
You got it. Everything.
Everything. So basically, you're solving it with a big data problem on steroids.
You got it exactly. And I think you've probably heard this before. Data is the new currency, and that is not a joke. That it really is. And the data that's generated by the car, the data that's generated by your phone. There's data coming from everywhere and anywhere. But the trick is, if you are able to process that data, carefully connect the dots, and make sense of it, that is where that's where the difference is.
Right.
And do it and apply it to practical, real-world problems,
right,
such as parking.
Right. Well, it's interesting because you never think about parking as being a big data problem. Is that spot empty or full? It's kind of an either yes or no, 0 or 1.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But there's a lot that leads into knowing whether that's a 0 or a 1.
Oh,
whether it's empty or full.
There's more than you can imagine. I mean, we just talked about what I like to call the dynamic data, the availability. There's also the static data. Let's say that a spot's open. I mean, how do you need to know whether you can park there legally at this time or not? That's number one, because it may look open, so we have to take all of this into account. An event, the weather, traffic. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on. Like you said, big data on steroids. And then we are able, that's all the data we are processing. Yeah,
well, weather would be an interesting one, having grown up in the south side of Chicago.
Oh, man.
The joke in Chicago is the snowfall at Thanksgiving and you get your car back in March.
Oh, yeah. You ever seen the thing where you put your chair in the snow and you dig it out? You better not move that chair.
You don't touch the chair.
Oh, no.
People, when they dig out that spot, they own that spot. Do not park in that spot.
You got it.
They spend that time. The people get really nasty about it.
That's
unfortunate. Do you guys take all that into account too?
I mean, we do, but probably not so much the chair situation. But the data is coming in. We are, it's in the winter time, things are happening, and we're getting data in. So yes, in essence, we are, but that's just one small piece to, a massive set of data.
Interesting. Because, Chicago is challenging, right? Because you have both streetways and alleyways, right?
Yep.
And people have gotten extremely creative on unofficial parking spots, right?
Yeah.
That are not part of legitimate inventory.
We follow regulations because, of course, we don't want, we work with major automotive manufacturers, and we don't want to direct someone to where it is illegal to park.
Right.
That would not be a good user experience if you get towed or a ticket. We don't want to do that, so we try to avoid that. Right. We stick strictly to the regulated on-street parking.
But you also
spaces.
keep track of, time zones and whether I got to have a zone tag to park in that area.
We call that permit, residential permit.
Right.
We do it for metered parking, free parking, and permit parking. So you were mentioning the puck thing before, the sensor. Their business model is, let's put it where there's metered parking and we know if someone's overparked and write them a ticket. But they don't bother to do that for permit. They don't bother to do that for free because it's not in the business model. Right. They're not going to make money. The beauty of our technology is we can do it for anything and everything, all on street parking.
Interesting. Because, having grown up in Chicago, the parking problem is astronomical. But even now, I live in Colorado now, parking in Boulder is an absolute nightmare. And in fact, in many cases, I'll avoid going in at night to go to a restaurant or whatever. I'll go out of my way because I don't want to deal with the parking issue. So we're going to take another quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to pick up this conversation, talking more specifically about the business, where you're at, what were the pivots that got to where you're at today, and then kind of what's coming up next for you guys. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this short break.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovators Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
So let's pick up the conversation. Where is the business at today from where you started? Because I mean, like, I'm assuming like most businesses, there's starts and stops and challenges and pivots, and so give us a little bit of the timeline up to where you are today.
Yeah. So, okay, when we first started, we knew that this was a problem for everyone. The typical person driving their car has to find parking. So we're like, oh, okay, we have the use case, perfect consumer, perfect buyer of the service. We were thinking to ourselves, yeah, that's great. So we started going B2C. We quickly learned that, well, first off, you have to be able to solve the pain at the time that the pain occurs. Mm-hmm. So if someone's looking for parking, you can't just say, oh, now you have to pay. And, we put it in an application and it's like, oh, I have to pay, and it just causes more problems and people are stressed. So we tried different methods. We tried, subscription, pay per use, freemium, all kinds of fun stuff. But we quickly learned they will use it. But similar to the way navigation has evolved, they won't pay for it. Mm-hmm. So people use, Google and Google Maps, and I think Telenav used to have one way back when, and MapQuest way back in the day. But now, people expect navigation on their phone or wherever to be free. They still will use it, but they don't want to pay for it because they're thinking to themselves, well, I just don't want to. So we then had to pivot, and we thought, okay, businesses, fleets, people who drive cars who have to park multiple times a day. And we started targeting Joe the plumber and, Sally the electrician and all those different things. And yeah, we got some more feedback. We got more and more people who were interested. We started seeing that businesses are the way to go. We needed to shift to a B2B model. And then we said, okay, we really need to pick it up. Who are the real people, the real organizations that are interested in this? And then we thought, okay, let's combine the B2B and then to C, the automotive industry. And this is when things were just becoming ripe. I mean, we started in 2012. Mm-hmm. And the conversation back then was, well, does it work? Now the conversation is, how does it work? So things have shifted. And now companies are more open to it. And as I mentioned, we're working with automotives. In fact, it was integrated into one of the largest German automakers in the world. I can't say which one it is, but it's directly into the infotainment system. And now everything is just ripe for this technology. And the floodgates have kind of opened. And it's like, okay, well, we found one vertical along with a few others, but we've now found kind of the sweet spot,
right.
I guess.
Right. Interesting. But let's back up to where you made that pivot that it was going to be a B2B or go to a B2B to C. Was there something that was just obvious? Was it the fact that it wasn't working, you had to find another alternative? At the point in that, because it's hard for sometimes people to let go.
It is.
I'm down this path. Yeah. And I just know it's the right path, and I'm going to do whatever's necessary, and I'm going to really push this when the pivot could be the right thing. But how do you get over that hump of perseverance versus stop and shift?
So, I mean, we were getting conflicting. Here, this was a big challenge for us because people were like, oh yeah, parking is a nightmare. Parking's a problem. We love this, we love the idea. This is great, but then at the same time, people were not buying it. They weren't doing it, so we're thinking to ourselves, we tried different things. Is it that we're not solving the pain at the right time, where they have to pay? Is it that we're not charging the right amount? We tried different things, and finally, we decided, after trying different methods, we decided, okay, this is just not working. We have to attempt to do this in a different way, and we started brainstorming. We literally just had to, we noticed that it was not getting the traction it needed, and the hardest part, like you mentioned, was, I guess the best way to say it is come to Jesus moment, where you're like, no, this is just not working. We have to figure something else out. Okay. And that's what we did. And we thought about, okay, who should we target? How should we target them? We need to do businesses. Who's the ideal customer? Let's talk to some businesses. Let's literally go out into the street, find an AT&T truck stop the guy and say, what do you think? Would you use this? And it literally went like that. We had to start from the ground up and get use cases that made sense, because we had already thought we had figured everything out with the consumer, but we were wrong. So we had to dig even deeper.
So when you said you thought you had it all figured out for the consumer, did you go through that kind of a rigorous, really talking to customers, or was a little bit of confirmation bias? I think this is the answer. So I'm asking questions in order to get a confirmation to prove my hypothesis versus really understanding what consumers are talking about.
A little bit A, a little bit of B.
Yeah.
It's probably the best way to say it. Because people, of course, we did have a bias, and this is I think a big problem. I think you're touching on a really, really big problem. You have your own bias, and this goes back to what we were discussing before. You need someone independent who's not connected and who's not afraid to say this isn't working or this isn't a good idea.
Right.
So we really needed to talk to people, and we had to build our use cases and kind of go through everything again and just start from the ground up. I mean, but yeah, there was bias in there, and finally we decided, no, it's not working. We have to look at the objective raw numbers, and it's just not there. If it's not there, we have to make a change.
Right.
You have to. You can't lie to yourself when the money isn't coming in.
Yeah, or some cases people will try to rationalize it away.
Yeah.
Right. It's we need more features, or we need more advertising spend, or we need a rebrand, or and you can come up with 10,000 reasons, and it's all basically rationalizing away the realization that no, there's a fundamental assumption here that we built the model on that doesn't work. At what point do you pull the trigger and then pivot?
You got it. Yep.
Was it obvious to go to B2B?
Well, it was more obvious. I mean, that was the logical next step.
Right.
I guess because we did the consumer, we said, okay, who else parks many, many times in a given day and would benefit from this solution? And that's when we thought of, the utility, not the large, trucks, not delivery guys, because they're just going to do whatever. But think of like AT&T. I mean, this is just an example. I'm just throwing out a company name, but they have to park multiple times. They want to park as close as they can to a location, and if they don't get to a customer in time, satisfaction is going to go down. And we later found out that for a lot of these organizations, they will take a ticket after a certain amount of time. So there's even a monetary savings associated with this. Now, this is the fleet vertical. Right. So that's just one example. But, then automotives, people are driving their car. The natural fit is you're navigating. You can see traffic. Let's just figure out parking all on the same system. So there was some smooth progression into this. Right. And it was it was the obvious next step. Maybe not at the very beginning. We thought it was the consumer, but it was, to us at least, the logical next step.
Yeah, maybe it's that difference between I'm parking because out of convenience as a consumer versus parking as a fundamental step in me delivering a service as a business.
Yeah.
And becoming that shift. So today, what is that large? What is the segment that Parknav's focusing on? Is it the auto manufacturers?
It's the auto manufacturer. So that is
getting it embedded in is just part of the overall car experience.
You got it. It's that one all-in-one
solution. Now, don't they
solution.
turn around and charge the consumer?
Well, there's different models. Sometimes I can talk. I'll just give an example with one. They provide it for free for a certain number of years. And then yes, it's a a la carte service thing. You can get traffic.
So it's like my Sirius XM. I get it free when I buy a new car for the first year.
And it's great. You love it.
And then I get dinged by Sirius saying, "Okay, you want to continue listening?"
You've gotten hooked. That's the point. They've given you that experience, and you don't want to give that up.
Do you have any understanding or insight into customers who've used it? They use it once, and do they use it a lot? How many customers actually use it?
Yeah, I mean, we have we get numbers. We can see where people are going. I mean, we kind of have a general profile, but it really there's no secret sauce to it. I mean, every region's different, every city's different. We get different usages. I wish I could give you a better answer to that, but in the automotive world, when someone's driving their car, it's just
very personalized. It's the experience of one.
You got it, because some people use traffic in their car, some people don't. Some people use navigation in their car, some use their phone. It just depends. So we do have, it's not as simple, but we do know people are using it, and we do know that they love it.
Oh, interesting. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, what I'd like for you to do is to kind of look back on your experience. And if you could go back to the beginning using all the experience you have and give yourself advice, what would be that advice? Something that you wish you'd known when you started down this path that could have saved you a lot of pain, frustration, heartache.
The pain.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you some time during the break. You get to think about that. But when we come back, looking for you to share some of that advice with our listeners. With that, we'll be right back after this break.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to the show. We're wrapping up our conversation with Jeremy Leval from Parknav. Now, I gave you a task at the end of the last segment to share some piece of advice based on what you've learned having gone through the experience here, right? We all think we know going in, and we all go through the experience of learning. Here's an opportunity to share with our listeners, two pieces of advice as an example that you wish you knew at the beginning that would have saved you, some frustration, pain.
Sure.
Right?
So, after we had pivoted, when you're dealing with automakers and these large corporations, and you're a teeny tiny startup, you need to get their attention. You need to have some recognition of some sort. Otherwise, you're just a little guy in a big pond. So one of the things that I'd say that we learn now is, rather than just going and trying to shoot from the hip and contact everyone and do everything, we were a part of accelerators. And I know that this is something more and more people are seeing, accelerators or incubators and all these different things. I think that they are extremely valuable, and they are extremely valuable because, like what we mentioned, you're getting feedback. There's other people involved. You have mentors, but even more important, a lot of these accelerators have relationships with companies, and so you can kind of get past all that bureaucratic red tape and all that good stuff. We were a part of Microsoft Ventures, in Seattle, and I will tell you that was.
What year was this?
This was 2015.
2000. So was Raul still running Microsoft Ventures at that time?
No, I don't believe it was Raul.
Okay.
It was, oh my goodness.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry,
But,
we're off on a tangent here in the show because we just had an EVP from Microsoft was in here a couple of hours ago for an interview. So, but not all incubators, accelerators are the same.
No, they are not. And I've gotten feedback that you need to qualify them, but in our case, like with Microsoft Ventures, they never said no to us. So they gave us Azure credit, so that way, we didn't have to spend any money on servers. We were given mentors. We were introduced to customers. We were a part of Startup Bootcamp Berlin more recently, and directly from these accelerators, we were you get that brand recognition. You kind of jump when they say they accelerate you. It's not a joke. They are literally giving you recognition, introducing you to people, and it really makes a difference, especially if you are targeting larger corporations and you're the little guy.
But it's also, in those cases, though, it's not everything's handed to you. You got to work it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I maybe simplified it in saying,
right.
Oh, yeah, if you're a part of it, you're good to go. No, that's not true. You really need, it's what you make of it. If you do nothing is going to happen. Right. If you ask and you participate and you're aggressive and you really put your heart into it, you're gonna reap the rewards. Right. And I think that's where we are. It was never an easy thing. People don't just say, oh, okay, you were a part of this. Here we go. We're great. Let's sign up and let's do it. No, it doesn't work that way.
Okay, so what's the second piece of advice?
The second piece of advice, when you are going and trying to sell your product to a company, we've learned that, I'm guessing a lot of people know this, there are many divisions within a company. You talk to one person, they may say no. You talk to another person, they may say no. You talk to another person, they may say no. You talk to a fourth person, they may say this makes sense for us and it works. So don't give up. If a company says no to you, and you're talking to one individual, that doesn't mean no. That means maybe just for that business unit, it does not make sense.
Because typically when people get that no answer, then they're off looking at a completely different company.
Yeah.
What you're saying is keep drilling.
I'm saying keep drilling. Don't say one person says no to you. I mean, that's not the end of the line. Not to mention, companies, a lot of people shift and priorities change year to year. But I'm just saying, if someone says no to you, that's not the end of the story. You just maybe are not they're not the right person.
Right.
And think about it this way: it's easier for someone to say no than it is to say yes. No, really. If you're talking to someone who is not necessarily the right decision maker,
right?
They can. I mean, the only power they may even have is just to say no,
right,
rather than to say yes.
Well, it's always the joke where 99% of the employees have the permission to say no. 1% of the people in the organization have the authority to say yes.
So that's who you need
how
to reach.
How do you go find the 1%?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a whole other story. I mean, we're here at CES. This is a great opportunity. These conferences, I would tell people, conferences are your friend, at least to network and to build, meet different people at different parts of the organization, be introduced to more people. But that's the name of the game. Don't take no as a final answer. I mean, at least that's the way I see it. I won't keep bothering that one person, but at least I'll look within the company.
Right, exactly. So good. So 2 pieces of advice. One is don't overlook the benefit of the accelerators, incubators to kind of crack the door open when you're particularly a smaller guy, don't have the name recognition.
You're going for the big
the
fish.
Rolodex, and you're going for the big guys because most of the big companies now are sponsoring or supporting or mentoring and as part of it, incubators and accelerators today.
Yeah, they're realizing that they need to get a pulse on the startup community. A lot. I mean, the smart ones at least.
Right.
They need to be involved.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's interesting because you also did Berlin, which means don't limit yourself just to the U.S.
Absolutely
also
not.
As part of it, take a global view.
Yeah, most of our business, I would say a significant portion, comes from Europe. Right. I mean, they even are more open to our technology than the U.S. I mean, the U.S. is open to it, but at least in Europe, it is. I mean, it's a hot topic.
And then your second piece of advice is don't give up on the first no.
Don't give up on the first no.
Keep drilling.
Keep drilling.
Find that other part of an organization.
Yep.
That could take advantage of it. Don't give up on that target completely just because you got the first no in the door. That can be also personally frustrating, right? Because how many times do you take no, right?
Oh, you need to have thick skin.
Yeah.
You need to really have thick skin because, like I mentioned earlier, before people used to say, does your technology work? To now, how does it work? Before, when, now there's parking and you see one every 2 weeks, like you mentioned. But before, no one thought that this was possible. And so we got a lot of no's, and we really had to educate and crack that door open. And, with for every yes, there were maybe 100 no's.
Wow.
And so we really kept going. So it's huge. It's huge.
As we wrap up today's show, if listeners want to follow up with what you're doing, what's the best way to track you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can check us out at parknav.com. Think of parking navigation, but shortened to parknav.com. Or you can reach out to us directly at contact@parknav.com. We respond to all emails. We love any insight or anything that you guys want to send us. We love hearing from you.
Great. And we'll have all those links in the show notes. Want to wrap up today's show. Appreciate you taking the time to join us, and I know it's out of your busy schedule. If you've got suggestions for upcoming shows, just drop me a note, phil@killinnovations.com. We will have the show notes over at killinnovations.com, and you can check back the 14-year history. Talk to you soon.